And welcome, everyone. This is tonight's episode of the Sports Insiders. I am Denzel Snipes. This is the this way. Okay, here we go. This is the sports agent himself, MLB NFL agent Sean Russey, and we are here with a great show for you guys. We figured we'd go on probably about 30 minutes early because the NFL Hall of Fame game is coming on shortly. So we're just gonna run through this and then get you right to NBC Peacock, whatever it is you want to watch it on. Before we get started, be sure you check us out on all of our social media channels, all of our platforms. We are on Facebook, X, or Twitter, whatever you want to call it, Instagram, and TikTok as well. We actually have two pages on TikTok: Sideline Sports and Sideline One Sports. Sideline One Sports is actually operated by our guy Jacob Christner with all of his great takes on there. So follow us on all of our platforms. Also, of course, right here on YouTube, hit the like and subscribe button for any updates. And here we go. So we actually have had a hell of a day today, a hell of a week as well. But first, I want to get to these UFL closes, the United Football League. 4 teams have been shut down or relocated. Sean, you want to dive into that real quick?
Yeah, so over the weekend, basically all the original UFL teams closed down, other than St. Louis, citing attendance, obviously financial problems, typical with these independent leagues. But really, they cited the attendance issues, which is really what hits home. St. Louis averaged 8,100 fans per game. That was the only profitable franchise. So figured that's kind of the number you had to be at, somewhere over probably like 7,000 fans a game to be profitable.
Mm-hmm.
Um, all the other teams that were shuttered this weekend were under 4,000 fans per game. And it's
Okay.
not that they were in bad football areas. You and I just, I think, discussed this a little bit off the air in terms of how big high school football is in Texas.
Of course.
Um, and then, in terms of like Alabama, I really think the time of the season, it's really just football burnout.
Yeah.
They do it after the Super Bowl, after the Pro Bowl games. I really just think it's football burnout outside of that real niche group, like in St. Louis, where there is not an NFL franchise that is hungry to go to a football game, no matter what time of year it is.
Of course.
And obviously they still are clamoring to get a team back since the Rams ever left. But these other cities that they're in, Alabama, Houston, San Antonio, um, Washington D.C. All these other cities have NFL franchises, so I think what you're really looking at is just football burnout, especially figuring the college season goes a little longer now with the playoff.
Yeah.
Um,
They've
and the
also
land,
added week 0.
yeah,
There's
week
one more week.
0, and you basically have football starting here in September every night of the week. There's like whether it's college or pro, there's a game on somewhere.
Yeah.
Um,
I
So
think
I
that.
think that's what these
Oh, go ahead.
independent leagues suffer. No, I was going to say I think that's just what these independent leagues suffer from. Because if you look at the consistent history, 2, 3, 4 seasons, and they're done.
Yeah, pretty much. And this is just me, but the writing was always on the wall for me. Sometime between, I was gonna say, well, I said originally that from the time that the merger happened, I said, okay, within 5 years, the NFL is gonna buy them out. Now I'm saying within 3 years. Within 3 years, this is my prediction. The NFL is going to buy out the UFL, and it will become the official farm system, the official developmental league of the NFL. Where else can they really go from here? You know, the NFL is the only major professional sports league that not have some type of farm system. Baseball has AAA and AA. They got the minors. Uh, the AHL belongs to the NHL, right? And then you figure the basketball has the G League. So it's only right that the NFL does create, a farm system finally, because NFL Europe shut down operations in 2009, and they had always operated as a development for the NFL since way back the World League of American Football in like 1990. Shout out to our guy Dave DeRoche, who played for the Montreal Machine, baby. We see you. Every single time he comes on the air, you see his Montreal Machines helmet in the back. But yeah, like I said, it's not a matter of if, Sean, but when, in my humble opinion.
Yeah, and I think I know they've added a new billionaire in the last 24, 48 hours, Mike Ripoli, who's saying he thinks he could get this league to 16 teams by 2035. I'm like you. I'm assuming that's only with the assistance of the NFL, because the history of an independent league, saying we're going to go for the next 10 years. I just, without that backing, it's, I think it's just going to be hard. I understand they're moving one of these teams to Columbus, but again, you're looking at a state that, you've got the Buckeyes all year long. You've got Cleveland, you've got Cincinnati Bengals, and now you've got the Reds playing pretty good baseball.
Yeah, and
So
then
I
also,
mean,
oh,
go
oh, I'm
ahead.
sorry. Go
Go
ahead.
ahead.
Oh,
No,
I
I'm
was gonna.
just, again, the timing of the independent leagues, I think, has to come in question, and I think you need to have these guys playing at the same time the NFL is playing, and stop worrying about, hey, it has to be on TV. No, you need a developmental system.
Yeah, and then not to mention one of the cities that got the bid was Boise, Idaho. And I know not to them, you know what I mean. But I don't know if they're going to be well received because, well, the Boise State Broncos, that's their football team.
Mm-hmm. Yep. No, and it's no different. That they had what with the Iowa Barnstormers in the arena way back when the arena was, a really decent league. Um, but again, you're talking about, and then you've got the players want to go out there for something that's not college or, necessarily professional, if it's not a developmental setting. What the USFL had done great, and then we'll move on here, is they had really became known that, especially Birmingham, about 2/3 of their guys after every season were at least getting NFL tryouts.
They were Cavante Turpin, who was a USFL Most Valuable Player. He's now a wide receiver in the tournament for the Cowboys.
Yep. And you've got several other examples like that. And so I think they were going down the right path. And then I don't know if the merger with the XFL is what caused this today, because I think the attendance would have been the same. Um, but it's just, you hope they can get something where they're still back to 8 teams if they are going to try one more time. But, hopefully they're not like Arena, okay, running 4 teams in 12 weeks and just rotating, playing the same 3 teams. That's nothing anybody really wants to see.
Yeah, yeah, like the old United Football League before, I think it was back in like 2009 or 10 or something like that. It was like 3 teams. I was like, what was the point? But
Yep.
moving on here, and the MLB trade deadline closed out today. Let's see. So some moves that were made. The Mets acquired a lot of well, they got some bullpen pieces, including closer Henley from St. Louis. The Phillies got closer Duran from the Twins. The Yankees added infield pieces as well as they dealt with some late season injuries. Ryan McMahon from Rockies. Um, but the question is, how does this Coors number stack up when playing in stadiums outside of Yankee Stadium with the famous short portion of right? The Mariners landed Eugenio Suarez, who actually was MLB Network's the Chicago Cubs were the number one destination according to them last week, and as you can see, he's landing in the American League West on the um, on the Mariners. And the Mariners acquired Josh Naylor from the Diamondback. Back. So, question for you: is Seattle now the team to beat in the American League?
Yeah, I mean, on paper, they really got a stacked 1 through 9 now, and we'll touch on some of the other teams that kind of struggle in that area in a little bit. But they've really got a solid lineup. What I see with Seattle, really, and I do believe they also added some bullpen arms on this deadline, just not major, guys, just niche low relievers. Their biggest issue has been containing other teams' offenses. They also about middle of the pack in errors. So that's hurting their defensive runs against a little bit. So I think it's almost a situation like LA where they have to out hit you, but they definitely have the 1 through 9 in order to do it now.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And so, well, more on the trade deadline. The Reds actually got a solid piece in Zach Littell from the Rays, and that was hours after he held the Yanks to one run over 7 innings. The Blue Jays, who in which as of the last couple of weeks, it's kind of been a one-team division in the AL East. The Blue Jays and Orioles made a trade. Sir Anthony Dominguez went to Toronto for a prospect. The Blue Jays acquired pitcher Shane Bieber from the Guardians, who's a former Cy Young winner. Thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a big move for Toronto. We'll touch on it more when we look at the stats here shortly, but they have struggled in terms of not being involved in close games, and kind of like the Mariners, they're in a position right now where their defensive pitching has not been consistent enough to have really consistently bad days at the plate to overcome. So that's something that we're going to look out for here in the playoffs with those two teams when things get a little bit tighter and you're not getting as many pitches to see.
Yeah, absolutely. And so, well, moving on real quick here, out there in the AL East, and what seems like at one point in time, the Braves were those guys out there, and they have fallen off steeply. Of course, injuries had played a part, but despite being out of contention for the most part, they did add four pitchers. Braves have lost 21 of the last 29. They've been shut out five times during that span. But they did send pitcher Rafael Montero to Detroit for shortstop prospect Jim Jarvis. Um, uh, I mean, so question here, okay? Is this basically have they basically just kind of like mailed it in for 2025, and these are just auditions for next year?
Yeah, so it's interesting to see what they're doing, right? Because obviously they were expected to compete. I think their win differential in terms of AI projections is one of the greatest win differentials that teams have at this point in terms of where they were expected to be. But they've had some injuries. The pitching hasn't been great, and then when I see them acquire, an aging Carlos Carrasco who's been in the minors pretty much all year, they called him up immediately. He's going to start tonight. It kind of makes me wonder what they are doing. Are they looking for maybe if they can get a year or two out of these guys? Because these are some veteran arms that they added. Because I just don't see them getting into contention this year. So it seems like they're saying, hey, our roster is pretty good. We've signed several guys to extensions. They kept Ozuna through the trade deadline, which there was some news of him getting back to San Diego. They
Oh wow.
kept him. So I think they are probably trying out the pitchers in terms of shaping up a rotation and a bullpen for next year. So I don't think all these guys will stay, but I think some of these four are probably trying to secure jobs with Atlanta next year.
Okay, and then and then lastly, the a few more in the last segment, the last part of the segment here. The Padres did add a closer and a starter from the A's for one of their top prospects. So in the final hour of the trade deadline, the Padres added O'Hearn and Laureano from the O's. The Rangers added Merrill Kelly to an already tough staff. The Astros have brought back shortstop third baseman Carlos Correa in a trade with the Twins. So Carlos Correa is coming home. The Rays and the Yanks raised Jose Caballero to the Yanks, and then Yanks Camille Duvall from the Giants. Thoughts on the last hour of the trade deadline?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think anyone saw the Correa deal coming. There's news coming out now that the Houston GM has constantly contacted Minnesota after they've lost Correa, so he's definitely always wanted him back.
Yes,
Um, so I don't think anyone saw the Twins giving up on him, though, even though they're out of contention. Correa is a long-term piece, no matter how you look at it. So this is a huge get for the Astros, not only for the ongoing run that they're pushing for now as they're leading the AL West currently, but just for the next few years, you've solidified the left side of the infield again.
absolutely. And you got to think Correa was the shortstop for the Astros, and then got traded to the Twins. He was replaced by Jeremy Pena, who immediately came in and won ALCS MVP and World Series MVP. Now, just imagine when Pena gets back and takes back shortstop, and Correa's at third. You're right. The left side of the infield, those two are going to run the infield, in my opinion.
Yep.
They're going to run the infield.
No, I think it's a huge get for Houston. It's one of those things you usually just don't see it. If Correa got moved today under the radar, you figure it's going to be a team like the Yankees, the Angels, the Giants, the Dodgers, one of those teams that usually make those types of big moves. Um, and I mentioned the Giants and Angels because they're notorious for going after those guys that you just don't know are available.
Yeah.
Kind of like they did with Devers. No one knew Devers was available. Next thing you know, the Giants struck a deal for him.
Yeah.
Um,
Absolutely. Hmm.
so it's just interesting to see that the Twins moved on from him so quickly. Obviously, with baseball now, the salary cap is always what it's been, where you can do what ownership wants to do. So it'll be interesting to see what they do in free agency this year. Now that they clearly have cleared a lot of cap space.
Absolutely. And you also had well lastly, we had our second half predictions based on expanded stats. You had a lot to say about the Texas Rangers for this first part. Go ahead, man.
Yeah, so this is something I've been looking at as we've been changing to the sports insiders here. Um, beginning June 1st or late June, the Rangers were 3 games under up 500. But the one thing I kept seeing is their run differential was in their favor by 10, 12, 15 runs. They were still in the plus column there. So it seemed like a correction was due. Now look, July 31st, and they're 5 games over 500, and they've added 60 runs to the run differential now at plus 72. And one of the reasons they've done that, and this has continued all season, they've got one of the lowest ERAs, one of the best defensive teams in terms of low errors. And they've been able to, even with not a powerhouse offense like, say, Seattle and the Dodgers, but because they stay consistently in games and their pitching is consistent day in and day out, they're a solid foundational ball teams that's just out there winning ball games the correct way. Um, and it's just something you could see coming looking at these counting stats going, well, it doesn't make sense how you're a losing team, but you've got plus run differential.
True.
Eventually that's going to correct itself. Something else in that division that I'm looking at right now too is the Astros are 20-10 in 1-run games. Houston's the only team in MLB that's plus 10 in terms of win differential in 1-1 games. The other division leaders are around plus 7. I expect Houston's going to see a 3 or 4 game differential correction there that could actually help Texas catch up to them in the division as they're only 5 games back as we stand today. I
True.
think you're looking at the Rangers floor as the wild card team, and they possibly could steal the division from Houston.
Okay. And then let's see. Speaking more on run differential, the Blue Jays have the least run differential among all division leaders. They have the second highest run average among all division leaders, second only to Los Angeles. The only difference is the Dodgers are plus 70 in differential compared to the Blue Jays plus 23. The Jays have been 32 in 32 one-run games, going 18-14 in that span. They're the only division leader that is sub 500 during day games. Expectation because Yankees injuries, and you see Aaron Judge just went to the IL for 10 days. The Jays hold the division, but they're ousted during round one when most of the games are played during the day. Their floor will be the wild card, ceiling AL champs losing the World Series. That's pretty bold, but you know what? To be honest with you, no one saw the Tigers coming last year neither, and they made the LCS.
Yeah, and I think what you're seeing right now with the Jays, unfortunately, is they've got a good offense, and they went and got some pitching, as we mentioned here. They've added some pitching that they desperately need. So we'll see if they turn around some of these stats, but they're playing too many close games. It's hard to do that during the playoffs and consistently be the team coming out on top, especially if you're not the team with the best pitching.
Okay.
So we'll see how that works out for them during the playoffs. And I thought the day thing was interesting just because, like I said, the other division leaders don't have that same struggle. Philadelphia's on the fence there with the daytime stuff, and it's just interesting because we have seen the Jays and Phillies kind of be ousted early last year.
Yeah, absolutely. And other teams to monitor on the good and the bad side of what we're on the topic of run differential. The Reds are plus 44, but they've acquired several pieces to make a run. Tough division with the Brewers and the Cubs. You kind of figure right now it's the Brewers and the Cubs division. Either team can be behind a game of the other at kind of any given time, right? So, excuse me. Um, they are playing some of the best baseball in the league. I say when it comes to the Cubs are going to make the postseason. It's just a matter of if they're going to be a division winner or if they're going to be a wild card. You know, barring a terrible like August slump, you figure, right? Um, 3 games behind San Diego for the final wild card spot are the Reds. San Diego's only plus 32 and has scored 50 less runs to the Reds through July the 1st. Their edge goes to Cincinnati. You and the prediction. He says here you got the Reds falling just short of the wild card due to a grueling schedule down the stretch that sees them facing Philly, Milwaukee, Los Angeles Dodgers, the Blue Jays, Mets, Padres. God, dog. Okay, the
Hmm.
Cubs for 2 series, and they close with the Brewers. I don't know if a team in the league has a tougher gauntlet.
Yeah, no, it's a tough stretch here. So I mean, if they keep playing at the clip they've been playing, obviously they could stay in the race. But like you said, with the Brewers and Cubs playing the way they're playing, even if they split those 4 series there, you're just still stuck at where you're at with the split. So they've really got to look at hopefully taking 3 or 4 there, and then they've got to look at you've got to find a way to at least split the Phillies, Blue Jays, Mets, and Padres series at a minimum, to stay within reaching difference. I think the Padres did more today in terms of improving pitching than the Reds did. Offensively, I still give that edge to Cincinnati because of how they run the bases, and they've got the steals. Um, but I think that overall, because of the schedule and because San Diego's getting the benefit of, Arizona's kind of bottoming out here over there in the NL West. I think San Diego will edge them out for that, at least their position in the standing. San Diego will stay in front of Cincinnati.
Yeah. Now it does say here because you figure out of all the teams that I just named, you figure probably the weakest team out of them are the Mets. But the Mets are running for the wild card. They're running for the NL East, and they were an NLCS team last year. Now they do get some help facing the Pirates for 2 series as well as the A's for a series, but slight pushback, Sean. The Oakland A's are a little bit better than advertised. I think these guys are a few years away. I've been paying attention to how they play ball. They swept Houston in Houston, right? Then you see what they're doing to Seattle. I think I think I think they're due actually for a good second half of the season,
No, they
and
did, and they've had some moments. They swept the Mets earlier this year.
they sure did.
When they're together, they play some solid baseball. You just kind
Yeah,
of wonder if it's going to fall out again here for them, just being where they are in the standings, and
yeah.
how are guys going to take to the field come late August, early September when we're starting to check out here.
Yeah, no. I totally get what you're saying. Is just the thing about it with the A's, man. They're the one of the most unpredictable teams. That's not a guaranteed W. Whenever you see them on the schedule, man, they are
No,
better than advertised. They are.
and
So,
just
in
one
my
more note
opinion, it
on
just
that.
gets tougher for the Reds. But go ahead.
With them moving, I was actually surprised they were allowed to dump as many pieces as they dumped today for prospects, figuring you're going to want more pieces on the roster for attendance reasons when they move here to Vegas. But it was surprised to see ownership okayed those moves today.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And then also as we finish this out, the Phillies are barely over 500 during the day, almost a 600 win percentage team at night. Another team that could be affected by daytime playoff games. Philly has 13 more day games this season. Based on those percentages, the Phillies would end up around 93 and 95 wins for the year. 93 wins, I believe. Did they hit 90? They hit 90 wins the last time they won the pennant. So for the floor wild card, ceiling NL East crown, fall again in the NLCS to Mets or Dodgers. But then you had something to say about the Mets. Go ahead.
Yeah, so the Mets, who they're Philly and them, I think have switched the division lead about 10 times just in the last 3 or 4 weeks because they've got that half game, 1 game span that we've been looking at in a few other places. But they've got 26 road games remaining, and right now, they're a sub 500 road team. So you're looking at maybe to keep pace with Philly, that they need to win 17 or 18 of those. So I think you're looking at the Mets ceiling, same as Philadelphia as the NLCS. I think either of them has fallen to the Dodgers. Um, I think if they play each other, the Mets have the edge. Their floor is the wild card, and it's probably where they end up because of their road percentages. Now, if that corrects itself a bit because of what they've done here at the trade deadline, we'll see. But the other problem they're having is they've got one of the worst 5 through 9s in baseball. I did not see them acquire a hitter yet. I know there's more deals coming through late after that 6 p.m. clock hit, but I didn't see them acquire any bats in the deadline. That could hamper them. Maybe they reach into AAA, see if they could bring someone up that catches fire.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but yeah, they right now they really depend on Lindor, Nimmo, Soto, and Alonso to carry the whole team there. And we saw what happened kind of when they got to the Dodgers last year when they were kind of getting tired and couldn't carry the load there. Those games got rough, and the Dodgers, got out of that series quickly.
Yep. And then you said final prediction for the season. Looks like you got the Rangers winning 2 out of 3, beating the Dodgers in 7 games. Am I seeing that correct?
Yeah, I think just, again, kind of like you said, Detroit, no one's really looking at Texas. And I think they've just had a consistent year, haven't been too up, haven't been too down, but now they're really starting to push in the right direction. The pitching has been consistent. The bats are coming alive. I would have liked to see them do a little bit more with what Seattle did today. Um, but it's just one of those teams. Like if you get them towards the ALCS, they just seem to be one of those teams. It's a hard out.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And then the final note, this season has seen the most six plus game winning streaks and most six plus game losing streaks by combined franchise in MLB history. Out of the 286 series played through 1 June, there have been 75 sweeps, or 27% of all series this season as of 1 June ended up in a sweep. Ladies and gentlemen, that is our show for today. Thank you all for tuning in to the Sports Insiders, and we will see you next week for the Sports Insiders.